I'm Jess Dakotas.
And I'm Nick Colziel. Welcome to That Sounds Terrifying, the podcast where we share terrifying stories, we share listener experiences, and we visit virtually some of the most haunted places in the United States and the world. Welcome back, everybody, to That Sounds Terrifying, the holiday edition. Super psyched. Jess has put together like the bulk of this episode. So those fans that don't like hearing my voice, this might be the last time you hear it in the entire episode. Just kidding. But I just wanted to give props where props are due. Thanks for putting this together. I'm so excited to be hearing these stories, Jess.
You're welcome. Also, I know you just did that because when this episode like falls apart or sucks, you're gonna be like, see, it was all Jess. So
Hey, what goes around comes around. I heard
really
those
crappy
comments.
episode.
No, it can't be a crappy episode. If you're putting it together, it's gonna be a super awesome, or it'll
So
sound
it's going to be,
terrific.
yeah, it'll be very merry, but terrifyingly so.
Very nice.
Yeah, so this episode is our Christmas episode. Happy holidays. And a lot of people are like, Christmas, ghosts, like what, what? And so what really inspired the line in the song, is it Jingle Bells? Is it Jingle Bells? I think it's Jingle Bells. There'll be scary ghost stories. No, it's not Jingle Bells. What is it? There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago.
The most wonderful
What is
time
it?
of the
It's
year.
the most wonderful time of the year. Yeah, that.
You got there. Look, and you got a singing performance and everything. This episode is bringing you holiday cheer.
Full of all of it. Yeah, it's Christmas carols.
Christmas carols.
But yeah, that line, like growing up, I was like, what do ghost stories have to do with Christmas? Like there'll be scary ghost stories. Don't tell ghost stories at Christmas, but people have for centuries done so. And so, but in our Western culture, we have not really associated with that because we have Halloween, and then we're like, okay, we're done with the scary.
Yeah.
But then there's people like you and I who are not done with the scary year round. So
yeah. Well, it's like, Charles Dickens and the different ghosts of Christmas and stuff. Yeah, there is some tradition around it, but you're absolutely right. Us Americans, we're really about the positive St. Nicholas stories and stuff.
Yes, you're right. Dickens had the four ghosts really, but I just watched, by the way, is it Spirited on Apple? It's with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, I've been waiting to watch that.
It's really funny. It's funny. I recommend it. It's musically, but it's also like hilariously so. It's funny. That's all I can say. So I was watching that last night and I didn't even finish it. I'm like halfway through because I go to bed at a reasonable hour. But yeah, so I was like, I can't watch this anymore, but it's funny and I will watch the rest of it because I'm invested now. Anyways, so it's the most wonderful time of the year with scary ghost stories. So I want to talk about why we stopped telling ghost stories and why we started telling ghost stories, really. So I looked this up and I was on I think it's like Carnegie something.com, and it was all about like the holiday history of ghost stories. So basically it was talking about how did something that is now much more associated with the fall end up as a Christmas tradition hundreds of years ago. So like now so many things we celebrate part of the season, we must look like past the symbols used in Christmas celebrations to earlier pre-Christian times, which I'm all about because I've always well, since coming out of where I was, which was, very evangelical, as we've discussed prior on this podcast, um, I've always heard that Christmas was actually brought to life because of Yule, which was a pagan holiday and is a pagan holiday. And they wanted to kind of usurp it in a
Yeah.
way, to have people celebrate Christmas a little bit more. Um, so that being said, following the outcome of the English Civil War, which abolished the feast day of Christmas, as well as Easter and Whitsun, and which was another name for Festival of Pentecost. Shops were to remain open, and soldiers were to patrol streets and seize food, being prepared for a feast on those days. Like they were trying to shut down Christmas as well,
Yeah.
back in like the 1600s. So from 1659 to 1681, the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and what would eventually become the United States, banned the celebration of Christmas with the penalty of being a 5 shilling fine, approximately 3-day wages for a skilled tradesman.
Bah humbug.
Yeah, so they were like, we don't want Christmas at all, like any kind of Christmas or Yule or anything. And it was because the Puritans didn't want to celebrate anything. So many modern Christmas traditions are a conglomeration of many cultural and spiritual beliefs, which a lot of Christians don't realize. But like the Yule log, as well as the Yule season, are often linked to pre-Christian celebrations and not Christianity as a whole right now. It was more of the celebration of solstice, the winter solstice,
Mhm.
when things get darker quicker, the short days at night. And so basically what they've determined is that they started telling these ghost stories around the fire. And it was because it was that feeling of warmth and group bonding back in the day during like the coldest, darkest time of the year. So we're going back hundreds, probably thousands is my guess, but hundreds documented of years, where they would sit around the fire before electricity, warming themselves. And what do you do to, like, if you're going camping and you don't have your phone and TV and internet and all that, what do? You bond, you tell stories.
Yeah.
And so, sitting around a campfire, that's what we tell ghost stories, like even in the summer when it's not Halloween time. So they were talking about like, it is a tradition that lasted for several hundred years until the Christmas celebrations were halted by the Puritans in the 1600s.
Mhm.
Um,
Those
and
Puritans.
despite many of the traditions making a resurgence during the Restoration, which was like 1660, like 1688, the damage had essentially been done already.
Mhm.
So along with reducing the importance of the Christmas feast days during the Enlightenment and the Industrial Revolution, many Christmas traditions were now like gone, forgotten, old fashioned, not introduced again. And ghost stories were kind of one of them. But then when Charles Dickens came about, right? Christmas was still kind of dead when Dickens actually came out with his Christmas story. Um, and he actually is pretty responsible for it. So like 1840s, there was a small resurgence of Christmas spirit, like
Yeah.
taking place in like that, in England. So he was able to capture on this like movement of like, oh yeah, like people are liking Christmas. So he like wrote this story specifically to capture that audience on this like, um burgeoning. He was a good marketer almost,
Yeah.
like this burgeoning like, oh, we want to feel like Christmas again. And so his ghost story, The Christmas Carol, um it didn't really approach like the commercial success of his first works, but it was still very successful, and he was
Right.
world renowned at this point anyways. I think, posthumously, The Christmas Carol probably became much more of a heartfelt tradition. It's his best known work at this point,
Yeah.
So that is, Yule is that pagan tradition, is why that we actually told ghost stories at Christmas time. And I just felt like I felt like that needed to be said, because a lot of times people do, they'll stop and be like, we don't tell ghost stories at Christmas, but we do tell
Right.
ghost stories. And it's not just Charles Dickens. People used to tell them all the time, just because that's what you do to bond and
Mhm.
engage with family and friends um, around a fire. And they used it to help um, build community, which I think
Mhm.
is crazy important, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's why we
So
have the 24-hour Yule log, right? Fire
fire.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We don't need it now because we have electricity, but
No, well, that's what I mean, like on YouTube and stuff like that.
yeah.
There was a
Um,
story, not to take a completely different side. I just want to share this
let's
real
let's
quick,
go.
but
Let's go down
there
this
was
road.
a
Yeah.
story just recently where technology has gotten so amazing, right? Like the digitalization of, like, the TV screen and how everything looks so real. Someone
Hmm.
called 911 in the city. I think it was New York City, because they saw flames in a in an apartment, and it was someone watching the Yule log burn.
Oh
All
my
right, in
God.
like
That's
October. It was the strangest thing. So he called, and like fire trucks all showed up and all this stuff, and it was on a like a huge, like, 100-inch screen TV being projected or whatever out, and he could, like, I'm like, why are you even looking in that person's apartment to begin with? It's like, it's kind of creepy.
that is
Different
weird.
type of terrifying. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, circling back to this story and like the Yule log, I just thought of that. I'm like, that's where the whole fire came from, is telling stories around the fire.
Telling stories. Yeah. So that is why it's very, very old. Um, I'm very interested in different traditions and why we celebrate the way we celebrate and things like that. So Halloween's very interesting to me. Like when trick-or-treating started in the 1930s,
Right.
I like to know those things. And same with Christmas. I knew pretty early on that it wasn't Christians who came up with, I mean, we came up with Christmas, but we didn't come up with um, that there was a holiday at the solstice, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that being said, other traditions, everybody's heard of, well, a lot of people have heard now of Krampus. This wasn't something that I grew up with. Did you grow up knowing about Krampus?
So I do remember talking to my grandmother or grandfather a little bit about that, because they're from Poland, but I believe it's a German
German.
tradition, or
Yes.
and it comes from that area. So I do remember her saying something about that, but I was so young
Mhm.
that I really just, it wasn't, she wasn't trying to scare me or anything, but she said something about, Krampus and the evil Santa. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. So Krampus traditions go back again centuries. They don't even know how old Krampus is. It's centuries. It is German, but it was well known throughout Europe, Eastern Europe.
Mhm.
Um, and they originally the drawings of Krampus were more like half goat, half human. What is that? A satyr? I don't know, a satyr. A satyr?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Satyr. A satyr.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, so half goat, half human. And he would go around on December 5th, which was St. Nicholas Day, with Santa. And Santa would reward all the good little boys and girls, and Krampus would punish them all with a switch. Like he'd either beat them, but some of them he would like, and I think it was like kind of indiscriminate. It didn't say like the really naughty kids got eaten. He was just like, they were like the really naughty kids would get captured, like kidnapped by Krampus
Jeez.
and taken back to his lair and eaten. Yeah, terrifying, right? Like, oh my God. Um, but that in the dark ages became more of a devil like looking, because like the devil, like when we think of it, has horns and like,
Yeah.
traditionally. And so I think that because the goat was so close to what they considered demon like,
Yeah.
um the Christian kind of took that over and made it more demonic. So throughout the years in the dark ages and then the Reformation, he became more demonic looking, more like Satan.
Yeah.
um And that's who he is now, right? But prior he was just a goat with legs. Like stood and walked
Yeah.
on them.
Well, I did a quick
um
Google search while you were kind of chatting because I wanted to know, am I doing this, or
mhm,
is this right? So like fawn is like the half human, half goat, but I believe it's like the bottom half and is goat. And then you're right,
mhm.
I think it is satyrs. And it goes like, what do satyrs do? They're widely seen as mischief makers who routinely play tricks on people, interfere with their personal property, had insatiable sexual appetites,
Oh
and
God.
often sought to seduce or ravish both nymphs and mortal women alike. There were,
Oh, okay.
though these attempts were not always successful. Well, thank God for that,
God,
Wikipedia.
yeah. Oh, God.
Good old
Um,
Wikipedia, let's get all the facts
yeah.
from there.
Thanks, Krampus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this Krampus, this satyr was more about children and eating them and making them, pay for their horrible deeds, their misdeeds. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just like a scare tactic for children.
Sure.
Like, you better be good. I personally like the idea of just saying Santa will bring you coal in your stocking instead
Yeah.
of
I was
like
gonna say, where does the
Krampus is
coal
gonna
come
come
back
like
in?
murder you.
There is a movie about that, of course, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
That horror movie. I think it was like a comedy and a horror movie.
Yeah, it was a
Um,
little out there.
yeah. I mean, that's really all I wanted to talk about with Krampus. It's just like we had to mention Krampus because it's a terrifying podcast, and he is a
Sure.
terrifying figure.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, but that's basically it for him. And I have a hard time introducing Krampus. I won't be introducing Krampus into my household.
Yeah. Well, and I was laughing because like when you first said that he like came out on St. Nicholas Day, and they were like, I just had this mental picture of like a Family Guy scene of like Krampus and St. Nicholas like frolicking, holding hands, like
Yeah.
skipping to like people's
Yeah.
houses. I'm like, that's just so freaking weird.
It is
Yeah.
weird. Yeah, on St. Nicholas Day, there's a lot of artwork that I came across
Yeah.
between St. Nicholas and Krampus. I mean, just so much artwork. And one of the ones that I came across was three children watching as Krampus basically kills Santa Claus,
Jeez.
kills St. Nicholas. Yeah, and I was like, God, like this is morbid as all hell, and I don't want to talk about it more than I have to. But
This is it's a
it's
little
very
bit different from my
terrifying.
image of them frolicking like Peter
Yes, yeah.
Griffin. Okay.
Yeah, it was very terrifying. And that's what our podcast is about. Like, that
Yeah.
sounds terrifying. That does sound terrifying to me.
Yeah. I would say so.
But anyways, there is something that I came across in my research that I had no idea about, and it comes from Wales, southern Wales. And have you ever heard of the Mary Lwyd?
Yeah.
Okay. So it is spelled Mari, Mary, Lwyd, because it's Welsh and there's consonants everywhere. So Mary Lwyd. And this translation is so what's funny is that it says Mary Lwyd, but like I came across several different translations of what this meant. Some of them said blessed Mary. Some of them said Virgin Mary. Some of them just said gray horse. It's
Okay.
like, okay.
It's
So what
like,
Mary Lwyd looks like, and I'll send you, we'll put photos up here.
yeah,
Um, and we can put it on our Instagram and stuff.
sure.
But given that Lwyd is usually the word for gray in the Welsh language, and that Welsh speakers would have been exposed to the English word mare, an alternative suggestion essentially was that it just meant gray mare, like gray horse.
Yeah.
But Mary, blessed, I don't know. Anyways, this figure is terrifying looking, and what it is, it's a skeleton of a horse head, like a horse skull, with like a white sheet on it, and you're going to
Oh.
see a picture of it. If you just look, you can look it up now if you'd like, but we're gonna put them up here. And essentially it was again about like the darkest time of the year. And on New Year's Eve, not necessarily Christmas, but New Year's Eve, they would go wassailing, which caroling, and somebody would dress in this Mary Lwyd costume, and you wouldn't be able to see. So your friends would be leading you around. And like the skull just kind of like sits on your head, like a real horse skull. But like they did have like fake ones too that
Yeah.
they would make, like of just pointed sheet. They would point like make a sheet look like a horse head.
Yeah.
But your friends would like put you in this and you would be led to different homes. And it's really funny because you would have to come up with a rhyme, knock on the door of a friend's house and come up with a rhyme as to why they should let you in. And they would have to answer from the other side of the door and rhyme back to you and say why you couldn't come in.
Jeez.
And if they fumbled, they would have to let you in and let you have access to all of their larder, their pantry, their drink, their food. And so if it's like it's a rap battle.
Yeah.
You would
Totally.
have
Well, yeah. What is that called? There's a game that I play that like it's Assassin's Creed, and they incorporate the lyrical like thing because it was a very Viking kind of oriented game, and oh, I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, it was very similar. Like there was betting done around it, right? That's
yeah.
super.
So it was just like it was merrymaking, right? And so on New Year's Eve, it's an excuse to like just play a game and hope that when you're on the inside with all your food and drink, you're gonna fail. So that way your friends can come in and have like a drink and whatever. But it's a terrifying figure. I wouldn't want that in my house.
No, I see what you're talking about, and I have seen that before. It's freaking crazy.
It's
They look,
creepy looking.
and most of them look like they're like brides to be.
Yes, they do. And like they decorate like the mane,
Yeah.
like the mane. There's no mane left because it's a dead horse skull.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
dead
they would
horse
decorate
skulls are
it.
freaking creepier than
They're
creepy.
huge, right? Yeah, like um but it was a pre-Christian tradition again, like you said, like I don't know if it's Viking era, but it was done for hundreds of
Oh
years
yeah.
prior up in the, in Wales, which it's darker, it's dark for much longer. Um, and yeah, it was just it could be done throughout the year. Actually, it didn't have to be New Year's Eve. They would do it for any special occasion, and they would get the horse out and like the Mary Lwyd out and like just do it throughout the year. And sometimes they would do it at like Samhain, which is like Halloween, pagan
Seriously, once is
Halloween.
not enough for these freaking things.
No, they would do
That's
it all the time.
keep that damn thing in the closet for the whole year, and it
Yeah,
comes
no, they
out
were like,
once.
no, we're
That's
gonna
enough.
pull that out again. I mean, they didn't have a lot of entertainment, right? So they're like, well, get the horse head out. We're gonna go like
Jesus.
knock on Aunt Mary's door and see what she's got.
Yeah, we're hungry. Let's get the horse head out and make people
Yeah.
freaking rhyme so we can go steal their food. That's
Essentially, yeah, like
yeah.
that's what they did. But I mean, hey, if you earned it, right?
Yeah. Holy crap.
There's a lot of pictures that we should show just like from what it is, but they still celebrate like St. David's Day is a festival that is held, and that's celebrated around the world too. And they get this out for that as well. It's really cool. Like it's something that I had never heard of. Like I think I've probably seen images and been like, that's creepy. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have just like knocked over my water bottle.
Yeah.
I just thought that it was an interesting tradition that I wanted to share because it's
Yeah.
cool and it's fun. And I would love to have a rap battle with somebody and be like, yeah, let me in. If I win, I get to drink all your booze and eat all your food.
Yeah, but you got to carry that horse skull around. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
like random. And do you know the comedian Bill Hicks? Have you ever heard of him?
I don't believe so.
He's the type of guy that like be like, he hates smokers, and then he'd like come out and like light a cigarette on the stage, right? So, but this has to do with Easter more than Christmas, but it made me think of it just because it's so random. And he was talking a lot about how there's a Bible in every hotel room, and like traditions of like the Easter bunny coming in and leaving eggs around for kids to find. And it's so random. It's just like, why bunnies? Why eggs? Why not goldfish left Lincoln Logs in my sock drawer? And it's like, Mommy, I woke up this morning and I found Lincoln Logs in my sock drawer. That's the story of Jesus. So anyways, I know that's not Christmas, but like that's what I'm thinking about with this like horse skull and going, you have to like be freaking Eminem or you're gonna, give up all your food.
Yeah. I wish I knew how long this was, but and if people would do this like just to friends, I assume
Yeah.
they would do it just to friends. It wasn't like you're going to some rando's house and being like, "Hey," like parappa the rapper.
Yeah. That's our next fan question. Have you ever done this to any of your friends?
Mm.
Lyrical battle for
Um,
food with horse skeleton.
with a horse skeleton.
Decorated horse
Uh,
skeleton.
there's a ballad here. It's a little rhyme that says, Mary Lewid, a sacred thing through the night they carry. Betrayed are the living, betrayed the dead. All are confused by a horse's head. By Vernon Watkins, Ballad of Mary Lewid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How do you respond
I
to
think
that? Like on the spot.
yeah,
Gone.
exactly. Yeah, you can't come in by the
Yeah.
hair of my chinny
Chin
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 chin,
chin.
which I paid a lot of money to get removed. No, I'm just kidding.
That also sounds
Yeah,
terrifying. Do we have pictures of
yeah.
that, Jess?
No, because I actually don't do that, but I was just being funny. But
Yeah, it worked. Very nice.
Mm. Sorry, I'm very thirsty today.
That's okay.
I've been running around everywhere. Um, so yeah, I mean, do you have anything else to add to that part?
No, I think I added enough randomness to that. I am truly I found a new thing to be scared of. Like I
Yeah.
don't, you better not show up. I mean, it's a long drive for you to show up on my front door with a horse's head, and too many chances that I might not be there. So I know you're
Yeah.
probably not going to do it, but don't you dare do that.
Yeah, no, I won't do that. Maybe your office, though. I do know that your office is
Yeah,
closer
yeah.
and I could knock on the door with a
I don't
horse's
know.
head.
I don't know if the university police might actually stop you.
They might, but
But
they
that'd be
also
an
might
interesting
not because
headline.
they'd be too afraid of the ghost horse that's just like randomly going through campus.
That is
You know
terrifying.
what? That person's really messed up. We're not gonna mess with them. We're not. We're not tonight. We're not.
Challenge accepted.
Cool. Well, without further ado, I have like three stories about Santa Claus. Um, and these are real stories from people who really believe that they've seen Santa.
Very cool.
Um,
I see him all the time,
all the
especially this time of
time.
year.
Yeah, at the mall.
Yeah.
I saw him at the Holiday Village last night. I've seen him everywhere. Yeah.
Drunk in a gully. I mean, just,
So
if you think about improv and
my son is already very discerning. He's 5, and I was shocked because we were at the mall. It's the first time he said this. He's said it repeatedly since, but we were at the mall and Santa was standing outside of his little Santa village, where they take the pictures and stuff. It was still November.
yeah.
And he fist bumped Santa and Santa's like, "Hey, how are you?" Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, "I'm good, whatever." And he said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Oh, it's Carson." So we leave and I'm like, "Do you want to get a picture with Santa?" And he was like, "No, that's not the real Santa, Mom." And I was like, "What?" I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean
Yeah.
that's not the real Santa? You
Yeah.
don't know that, like, and he goes, "Mom, he didn't know my name. That's
Yeah.
not the real Santa." It's like,
Smart kid.
he's
Smart kid.
he's so smart. He's smarter than me.
Watch out.
Already he's 5 and he's already smarter. Like I was like, "Oh God, here we go." And he goes, but then it was redeemable because he was like, "That's just one of his helpers, Mom."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, thank
Yeah.
God." But I was like, "Who told you that? Like, where did you come up
Yeah.
with that?" And he was just like, I just know that's one of his helpers,
Well,
not him."
I would just beware if you hear him knocking on your bedroom door and something lyrical comes out of his mouth, and then he has a dead horse skeleton and he wants a PlayStation 5. You're gonna share my
Right.
PlayStation 5 now. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah,
All right.
that's it, Mom. Yeah, no,
That's super cool.
yeah,
Smart
he's
kid.
interesting. He's smart, but he did the same thing we had something at my office and the same thing there was Santa and he was like, it's not him. I'm not seeing him. It's a waste of my time." Okay. He
Well,
doesn't want to waste his time.
I don't have a white enough beard yet, but maybe I should just show up and be like, "Hello, Carson," and then be like, "Oh my
Carson, yeah.
God,
It's
the real
Santa.
Santa,
Yeah.
and he's so fat."
So funny.
All
He's
right.
so fat.
Well,
Um,
we can get to the stories now. Sorry, listeners.
yeah, no, yeah, no. So I'm gonna start with a funny story. Just it was my own sighting.
Okay.
So it was December of, I think, last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago? I don't know. Anyways, we were on our way to go see lights. It was Christmas Eve, mind you. This is
Oh,
Christmas Eve. So we were on our way to go see lights at there's this big, beautiful house up the street from our house that just it's a mansion, and they do like gorgeous decorations. They do it for Halloween too, where you could like walk through. It's amazing. But like at Christmas, they just go all out and you just drive by and it's beautiful. And there's music and it supports a charity. It's lovely. So we were heading up there and it was a very clear night. And we had the moon roof in our car and it was open so I could see. And not like open, but like, there was no
yeah.
screen. And I
Right.
looked up and I saw lights. I saw lights floating in a line, like together in a chain, like this, just like slowly, but not too slowly. And I looked at my husband and I was like, I don't believe in Santa, but I can't explain that.
Yeah.
And then he was like, it was just a chain of lights.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he looks up and he goes, oh, that's Starlink.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
And
say.
yeah, it was Starlink. And I'm like, what is Starlink? I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at right now. I know it's like explainable. I know I can explain this away, but
Yeah.
like it's Christmas Eve and I see like 8 tiny reindeer lights. You know what I mean? Like, and like,
That's
your brain
awesome.
just goes there. You're like, there's 8 lights. Like, I don't know what this is. And he was just like, you've never heard of Starlink? It's like the satellites, Elon Musk, blah, blah, blah. And he like
Yeah.
lost me there. But I was like, no, I've never heard that. But it's really weird that I'm looking at it like Christmas
Yeah.
Eve. And like, so like Carson was in the back seat, like, look, Carson, there's Santa flying above us.
And she's probably like, "Mom, that's Starlink. How
Yeah, yeah. That's probably what he was thinking. Like, you're an
what's
idiot.
wrong with
Like,
my mom?
yeah, yeah, Mom, you're so dumb.
That's not Santa. That's just one of his Starlinks." Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, oh God. No, so it was really funny. I couldn't get over the like I'd never seen of it. I've seen it, I'd
Yeah.
never heard of it. Like, what is this? But yeah, it was not Santa, and it was
Yeah.
not his 8 tiny reindeer. And I, like honestly, like even as an adult, I was a little bummed.
Sure.
Like,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, you're like, oh man, I wish that was Santa. Um, so anyways, as I was researching this episode, I was like, I have heard of people who are like, I swear to God, I saw Santa. I know I saw him. And so I'm gonna read through these. I found these ones on Reddit. Um, there's like a paranormal page that talks about this stuff. And so I will do my best to keep them as short as possible, but I just thought they were kind of interesting.
Cool.
So this one's labeled I Saw Santa, and it's by person 1031. So they obviously wanted to be anonymous. Hey, so this will sound like BS or imagined, but this happened to me about 17 or 18 years ago, and I still remember most of it pretty clearly. It was early Christmas morning between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. in 1996 or 97. I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I always had trouble sleeping the night before Christmas as I couldn't wait until the morning to open my presents because here in Australia, Christmas is during the summer. So the nights are always quite hot. Anyway, I got out of bed to peek at the presents under the Christmas tree. My room exited into the hallway. At the end of the hallway was the kitchen and the dining area lounge room. As I crept out of the hallway into the dining area, something in the kitchen doorway caught my attention. I got back behind the hallway entry and observed what appeared to be a pair of legs wearing long red pants. The legs were bolt upright, but the rest of the figure was apparently bent at the hips into the kitchen doorway. So I couldn't really see the body. At this age, I still believed in Santa, so I went and woke my older sister, who begrudgingly came to have a look. We both peeked around the hallway entry and saw the same thing that I initially saw. The figure had not moved position since I observed it a minute or two earlier. So my sister tiredly suggested that it was just Dad and I should go back to bed. I was not convinced, though, and followed her back to her room as I did not want to be alone. She no longer believed in Santa and became annoyed at me for hiding under her desk and begging her to come and have another look with me. I finally crept back to my room, closed the door, leaving it slightly ajar, and proceeded to pace around my room, not knowing whether to wake my parents or have another look at the kitchen. My ceiling light was dimmed, so I could see my entire room clearly. There were no shadows. I finally decided to leave my room to wake my parents, and as I opened my door, standing there, blocking my path, was MFing Santa Claus. He was dressed exactly how I imagined him. He looked like the typical Coca-Cola Santa, right down to his white woolen trimmings, thick black belt with a golden buckle and red nightcap. He had small circular gold-rimmed glasses, a white curly beard, blue eyes, and liver spots on his cheeks. I froze. Okay, first of all, I didn't know that Santa had liver spots on his cheeks. I thought he just had like rosy cheeks.
Yeah, I didn't think he did.
But this guy had liver spots, so maybe this was like the local, some transient coming in, and I don't know, who had a rough life. I froze and looked up at his eyes. He had what I took to be a stern expression on his face, almost glaring at me. Just after we made eye contact, he bent his head towards me and slightly in a manner that suggested, What are you doing up? You shouldn't be awake. Go back to bed." I gasped, took a few steps back, and then jumped into bed, turned my back to the door, closed my eyes, and then I fell asleep. Despite my state of shock, I fell asleep. I remember thinking at the time, Santa doesn't like kids being awake because he can't drop off presents otherwise. So it was as if I knew that I should go back to sleep. The song about Santa Claus comes to mind. He knows when you are sleeping. He knows when you're awake. I didn't get a menacing feeling from this guy. I didn't feel that I was in any danger. I felt that I was in a bit of trouble for seeing him and that he was annoyed at me. He didn't seem joyful or loving either, though, just like neutral, I guess. I think that he somehow knew that I was going to go to my parents, and the only way that he could stop me was to block my exit. It's terrifying.
Yeah. As a parent, I'm terrified right now.
Right? Yeah. In the morning, both my parents said that they didn't see me the night before, and they both thought I imagined it naturally. I don't know what that means. They didn't see me the night before. What?
Maybe come out or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, then if they were in bed, that makes sense. My sister kept telling me that it was Dad. Every few years I bring it up at an event with my family, and my parents have denied wearing any Santa suit, and my sister still thinks it was my dad. After years of thinking about this event on and off, I have produced a number of facts that no one in my family can explain. Number 1, Christmas is in summer, and my dad never wore long pants to bed in the summer. Number 2, the figure did not move away from the kitchen entry for minutes, which is very odd. 3, no one in my family sleepwalks. 4, my sister saw the figure, therefore I did not imagine that part of my story. 5, I never went back to bed, so I could not have been dreaming. 6, I've never had a dream even close to being as vivid as seeing Santa. I've never imagined things to be present in reality that were not there. 7, Santa was too short and plump to be my dad, who is tall, and too tall to be my mom. He also had a completely different face, eyes, and skin type to my parents. 8, there were no signs of a break and enter. Nothing was stolen. 9, I did not hear footsteps approach my room. If it was a family member I saw so clearly, it would be mighty strange I didn't hear them walking on the floorboards. And 10, I managed to fall asleep within 30 seconds of seeing Santa despite my state of alarm. I attributed this to him sprinkling sleeping powder over me. I do not still believe in Santa, as I know he's completely fabricated. I think the Coca-Cola actually created his modern image the image of that I saw of him. I believe what I saw took the shape of Santa. And over the years, I have thought that maybe what I saw was possibly a spirit or some form of apparition. Um, he goes on to say, or he or she, I don't know. I recently saw a hypnotist to regress me back to that night so I can answer these questions. Unfortunately, it did not work. Um, and I still have no idea why or how this event occurred. It appeared to me that Santa was just wandering around the house, checking things out. He didn't seem to have an objective. And the biggest mystery to me of this entire story is the fact that I fell asleep soon after seeing him. That is just unnatural. I didn't pass out from shock and I didn't feel him touch me, so I'm not sure what happened. I've read other stories on the internet of people who've seen Santa. Some of the people can explain seeing Santa and then immediately falling asleep, just as I did. Many others report seeing a red light or orb. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but I know what I saw. I know the difference between a dream and being awake. And I am also not a closed mind. I'm also not closed-minded and accept that we do not know everything about reality. And then it says, anyway, I'm rambling a lot, so I'll end it here. Interested in anyone else's experiences with seeing Santa or having experienced a similar event.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Well, as I said, terrified as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, home invasion, I just know there's just too many ways that can happen without them having evidence of like the person really being in there. And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden this guy is there, realizes that he's sort of like been caught, and tells the kid go back to bed and gets out of there. So that's like the first logical explanation that pops in my head. But being the co-host of this podcast, also not afraid to go into that realm of like, it could be a spirit that is, trying to bring Christmas cheer to this kid or whatever,
Yeah.
in a way,
Mm.
or that's what they're seeing in, active imagination as a kid. The one thing with that though, the active imagination stuff, the sister saw it, so but
Yeah, the sister
no.
saw it too. So my mind goes to apparition.
Yeah.
Um, I heard a story once where on a podcast that I listened to, and I don't know which one, but of a guy who was a child when this took place, and he saw what you think of when you think of a witch, like the green with the long nose and the wart and
Yeah.
everything. And his conclusion was that it was a spirit contorting itself into something that they knew would scare him.
Yeah.
So it was a witch, and he saw the witch because it was something that they knew would, whatever. So if it's a spirit that looks like, they're trying to make themselves look like Santa Claus, it's not the worst thing.
I mean, or could have been a spirit that was doing, like I said, to like kind of, you know, put it, Christmas cheer into a child, or maybe it was, an old guy with liver spots that passed away, and one of his, employment opportunities was mall Santa, and
Santa.
that's where he lived, and he was just kind of going through the motions at home.
That would be
So
so insane. Can you
yeah.
imagine? Like, you die in your Santa suit, and
Oh
then
God.
you have to be Santa for the rest of your life. Like if you're a clown and you die in your clown suit, and you have to be a clown the rest of your eternity. Um,
What was that movie where there was a movie, it was like, it had very little to do with Christmas. It might have been something like Gremlins or something, where the dad had, they were telling the story, I think, in Gremlins, where the dad was found a couple days later in the chimney. He had died. He was dressed as Santa Claus, kind of a thing.
oh God, that's awful.
He was trying to
Yeah.
kind of bring the presents down the chimney and surprise the
Mhm.
kids. I'm like, that's crazy in itself right there. That's going far and above beyond like dad duty, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
going for realism here. I'm gonna go down my chimney, and
Mm.
how the kids gonna even know that? But yeah, back to this story. I just, like I said, the parent in me is like freaking out, going, was there a person in my house, right?
It sounded like the parents were totally unbothered by this.
Yeah. Ah,
Like
well,
they were like, "Yeah, I didn't see you and you were dreaming." They're like, "No,
yeah,
my sister saw it too." No, she didn't.
yeah, yeah. And part of me, the way that she described the sister, like, yeah, okay, whatever, and she went back to bed. Like, I'm not 100% sure that she saw her, and like, but I don't know, maybe it didn't like come back in the story that like she gave it as one of the facts, but you know, I don't know. Could just be someone on Reddit going, "Here's my story."
Well, yeah, throughout the years, she said that he or she said that they bring this up regularly,
Right.
and the sister doesn't deny seeing it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Um,
Yeah.
it was just at least they didn't say that the sister denied seeing it,
Yeah.
They said the sister saw it too, so it does corroborate the story. But
Sure.
I don't know. You ready for the next story?
Sure, let's go.
Fabulous. I'm embarrassed to admit that I do have a story about Santa Claus. I don't remember my age, but if I were to guess, it would probably be around 8 or 9. It was back when my parents were still together and we lived in a house in rural Sweden. We have some different traditions here regarding Santa. So I grew up doing a lot of weird things like leaving a bowl of porridge on the porch at night before Christmas Eve. It's an old Norse tradition from back when we believed we had hustumtar. I don't know what that is. Hustumtar. So our house was surrounded with woods and it was always pitch black during winter. So one night I sat by the window in the living room that looked out over the woods. I remember seeing a lantern lit up and how a Santa looking person walked across from left to right. And he was sort of shining, like the entirety of him was glowing white. And he held up a lantern and just walked and suddenly disappeared out of thin air. And everything got dark again. I ran and told my mom that I saw Santa in the woods, and she basically thought I was imagining things, but she didn't say she didn't believe me. She just expressed happiness over my vivid imagination. To this day, I remember it vividly, and I did not imagine it. I don't know what I saw, but I know for sure I saw something. The entire land was haunted as haunted AF. Growing up, I experienced a lot of weird things, but then my parents divorced, and now I live in the city, and we've had zero paranormal experiences since.
Wow. That's, crazy to put porridge outside.
Yes, that was the crazy part of the
That was the crazy
story.
part of the story.
Yeah.
No.
Hustomar. Hustomtar. Hustomtar.
So I looked up what that was, and it's a little house gnome. So creepy, you know.
It was creepy. Those are terrifying. I do
Yeah,
not like gnomes.
we don't want little gnomes around here. David the gnome, you're not welcome. Get back on
The
the
gnome,
raft, you
yes.
dumb, you
I
dumb buddies.
didn't he wrote a fox, right? Swift the
Yeah,
fox.
Swift.
I did like David the Gnome, but like I don't.
Sorry.
They're so creepy. Like I
Yeah.
don't. I mean, David the Gnome wasn't creepy because they made him like human, like but like I don't know. Growing up, I just hated those things. They're terrifying. But
So
again, I don't like dolls or things.
I don't want to do any spoilers, but the last episode of that series is
Mhm.
so sad and so freaking crazy. So Google that and check it out. And the audience, if they don't know what David the Gnome is, just watch the whole series and then watch the ending. But it's sad and it's so weird, like to me. But anyways, yeah, we can move on from David the Gnome and the gnome.
I don't like sad.
Yeah.
So this is my last story about Santa Claus. All right. This is by Rojas Dracul. And this was 5 years ago on Reddit.
Oh wow.
I was about 4 years old. The year was 1985, and I was a hyperactive kid. I rarely slept. As excited as I was for Christmas morning, I was wide awake all night. I listened for my parents to move the presents into the living room. I knew early on the whole Santa thing was a ruse, and then I heard it rustling of paper and shifting boxes. I snuck out of my room and peered around the corner, expecting to see my dad or mom stacking the loot under the tree. What I saw was a stranger in a red jacket type thing and red pants, a thick black belt holding almost tunic closed, like the tunic jacket,
Yeah.
I guess closed, and snowy and muddy black boots with thick soles. He had white hair peeking out from his cap and a bag empty on the floor. A single box was in his hand, wrapped in plain blue glossy paper. I was terrified because I thought someone broke in to rob us. I took a sharp breath and the man turned. He was older with a beard, just a regular full beard, not like Grizzly Adams, and gave me a shh sign. I didn't scream. Mm-hmm. I didn't scream. He motioned me over and called me by name. You shouldn't be awake. You're not supposed to see me. Keep it secret. Tell no one. And Merry Christmas. Are you Santa? I asked him. He chuckled and nodded. Yeah, kid. Some call me that. And then he was just gone. Poof. I never went back to sleep that night. I never told my mom about it until I was in my 20s. The end.
So like disappeared in front of him.
Yeah.
All right. So we had another spectral ghost Santa. Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. What if there are just like a bunch of ghosts that go around pretending to be Santa?
Stupid ghosts. Come on.
to keep like the spirit alive, like, you know, like the
well,
Christmas
hopefully
spirit
it
alive.
seems like they all are like these explanations are all like, you know, nice ghosts and things like that. So yeah, I mean that's kind of cool, but like as a parent, you know, you could like call the police like if you did hear about this stuff, right? Like there's someone in my house that was talking to my kid.
Yeah. Well, my question is like, did that blue glossy papered box like
Yeah.
in his hands, like did he leave it? And like if
Yeah.
so, what was in it? You know, was it something that he asked for
Yeah.
Christmas, he or she? Like, you know, I want to know.
Right.
What was
Right.
it?
Right.
Um, you know, that I
What are the
wish that we could like,
details, man?
yeah, ask questions, but actually they turned off the comments for most of these because they were so old.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, just so many unanswered questions
So
I
many
have about
unanswered
this.
questions. Yeah. But
Go ahead.
so I was just gonna say I'd love to hear some fan stories. Have you ever seen Santa Claus? Like legitimately
Yeah, our
thought it was
listeners.
Santa? Yeah, it'd be like great to hear what you think of these. I mean, Josh shared a little personal story and turned out to be a string of satellites. Uh I mean, I have a story, like really brief story from childhood that like at the time, because I was a kid, I was convinced that I saw Rudolph, like his not him, but like the glow of his light out my window. So if you go back a couple episodes where I talked about UFO lights and stuff like that,
Yeah, I was gonna say you see a lot of lights
this
out
was
your
like a red
window.
light. This was a red light. Now also it's like one of those things where I like, you know, I was a kid who loved to sort of share stories, and you know at the time I was even thinking about being a writer and stuff like that. So it could have been I just developed all that on my own. I thought I heard a noise on the roof, and when I pulled back the curtain to look out the window, I thought I saw a red glow, and it could have been from like an airplane or something, or like too long ago for a string of satellites that you were talking about,
Sure.
but it was enough to kind of make me believe longer, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's the coolest thing about Christmas, and maybe the coolest thing about these ghosts is that, you know, it's giving these kids maybe a little bit of a scare, but then they get to kind of, you know, Santa's real. My co-host thinks Santa's real, but it's really just a string of satellites. So I love
It
it.
was a moment of like, I don't know what this is. And I
Yeah.
want to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it might come up at a future improv session. It might just pop into my head. So we'll see.
Great.
Yeah, great. No one else will know until they listen to this episode. But well, thanks. I think those were really cool. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I hope we all, hope we all have a happy holiday season, whatever
Yeah.
you celebrate. Um, and also, I guess I'm just glad that these ghosts aren't like going around impersonating like, I don't know, spiritual figures. Like,
Yeah. You're just talking about a whole other can
yeah,
of worms here where we have, you know, deep fakes, you know.
yeah.
So deep fake
Um,
spirits. But
yeah.
yeah, I hope everybody does
Uh,
have a great holiday. And you know, the
or
best
Krampus.
gift, right? Krampus. The best gift that you guys can give us is, you know, rating and reviewing the show, and then definitely like share your stories and let us know like
Yeah.
what you want to hear next. We would love the fan feedback. We're starting to get some in. We have two more guests that want to be on the show, so really excited about
It's so
scheduling those
exciting.
out. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm so stoked about that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, share our podcast, please. It's fun, it's exciting. We have a lot of fun doing it. And we really appreciate you listening. If you made it this far, thank you so much.
yeah. Cool. Well, Merry Christmas to all, and happy holidays, and happy New Year. We'll see you. We'll see you in 2024.